What a breaking news! Prince Harry's hug of healing, Day 4 at the Diana Awards Mental Health Panel. Day 4 of the Diana Awards Mental Health Panel became a moment that no camera could truly contain, no newswire could fully capture, and no headline could adequately summarize. On this day, Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, did something that went beyond duty, beyond formality, beyond the conventions of royal protocol. He embraced Colleen Harris with a hug that radiated warmth, authenticity, and unfiltered humanity. That image, a prince leaning in, his arm wrapped firmly around a woman whose face lit up in pure joy, has become the emblem of what this gathering truly symbolized: connection, healing, and the power of legacy. But to understand why this moment was breaking news, and why it echoed around the world within hours, we must dive deeper into what unfolded on Day 4. How Prince Harry carried the memory of his late mother into the room, and why the Diana Awards mission resonated so strongly with him and everyone present. The Diana Award has long been associated with celebrating young changemakers who, in their own ways, keep the flame of Princess Diana's compassion alive. The event had already seen 3 remarkable days of dialogue, testimony, and breakthroughs. But Day 4 carried a special weight. It was devoted to mental health, the often unspoken crisis that lurks beneath glossy headlines and carefully polished photographs. Mental health, in its quiet but profound urgency, is an area where Prince Harry has consistently shown leadership, not as a detached advocate, but as someone who has bared his own vulnerabilities before the world. He has spoken about grief, trauma, anxiety, and the long shadows cast by losing his mother at such a formative age. The young recipients of the Diana Award came into the room with stories of their own battles: bullying, depression, racial discrimination, gender identity struggles, poverty, and systemic neglect. They weren't just there to listen to a prince. They were there to be seen, to be validated, and to be given a platform. When Prince Harry walked into the room that morning, there was a hush, not because of his title, but because of the weight of his presence. He was not flanked by stiff security or hidden behind scripted notes. Instead, he exuded approachability, smiling, clasping hands, and making eye contact. And then, as though destiny had arranged it, he was greeted by Colleen Harris, a woman whose work and presence in these circles had made her a fixture of trust and integrity. Cameras clicked, the audience leaned forward, and then the unexpected unfolded. Harry leaned in, and Colleen opened her arms. The embrace was immediate and unguarded. It was not staged, it was not rehearsed. It was one human being holding another, as though to say, "We are in this together." The hug itself spoke volumes. For Harry, hugs have always been more than gestures. They are symbols of empathy. His mother, Princess Diana, was often photographed hugging AIDS patients, embracing children in war zones, and holding the hands of those society had shunned. She knew the tactile power of love, the physical reassurance that transcended words. In that single moment with Colleen, Harry echoed his mother's legacy. He made headlines not by delivering a fiery speech or launching a new initiative, but by embodying Diana's ethos of compassion in the simplest, most powerful way possible. From there, the panel discussion commenced. Harry sat among the young Diana Award recipients, not elevated on a pedestal, but shoulder to shoulder with them. The conversation ranged from personal struggles with anxiety to the pressures of social media, from the difficulty of accessing mental health resources to the stigma still attached to seeking help. Each young person who spoke brought raw honesty into the room, and Harry responded not as a polished figurehead, but as a peer. He nodded, listened intently, leaned forward, and at times his face betrayed emotion: a wince when someone described bullying, a reflective silence when another described losing a loved one to suicide. When his turn came to speak, Harry's words were deliberate yet heartfelt. He reminded the audience that courage is not the absence of struggle, but the willingness to speak about it. "This," he said, gesturing to the panel, "is what Invictus, what the Diana Award, what true community does best. It creates spaces where courage meets opportunity, where being honest about pain becomes the doorway to healing." His words struck a chord because they were not delivered as lofty platitudes, but as truths he himself had lived. He reminded the young people that while the world may at times feel deaf to their pain, Gatherings like this were proof that their voices mattered, that their stories could ripple outward to spark change. Colleen Harris, who had received that headline-making hug, later spoke about the significance of the day. She said the embrace was not just personal. It was symbolic of how the Diana Award movement embraces every young person who walks through its doors. She described Harry as his mother's son, through and through, and said the interaction captured the very spirit Diana had instilled in all who knew her, to never look past someone in pain, to never walk away from someone in need of comfort. Her words were met with applause, and the image of that hug, by then circulating widely on social media, became a rallying point for mental health advocates worldwide. The global reaction was immediate. By the time the event ended, the photograph of Harry and Colleen had appeared across timelines, news feeds, and digital banners. Hashtags like #HugOfHealing, #DianaLegacy, and #HarryDay4 trended simultaneously. Mental health organizations applauded the gesture, calling it a reminder that leadership in this field is not about hierarchy, but about humanity. Young people across continents reposted the image with captions such as, "This is what empathy looks like," and "Healing through connection." Even critics who had often sought to diminish Harry's efforts were subdued, for the hug was indisputable. It was visible truth. What made Day 4 stand out in the grand arc of Harry's journey was how it crystallized the mission he has long pursued. His work with Heads Together, his candid revelations in interviews, his advocacy through Invictus, all of it pointed towards breaking the silence around mental health. But here, in this room with award recipients, he was not a celebrity advocate. He was a living, breathing example of someone who had been through darkness and chosen to channel it into light. His hug with Colleen was a portal into that truth. As the day progressed, more young recipients came forward, each sharing their story, each receiving encouragement not just from Harry, but from one another. The panel transformed from a formal event into a communal act of storytelling and healing. Harry's presence gave the gathering visibility, but the voices of the young people gave it soul. The hug became the headline, but the undercurrent was the collective bravery of everyone in the room. In the hours that followed, newspapers scrambled to craft their headlines. Prince Harry's hug becomes symbol of healing. Day 4 defined by compassion. The hug heard around the world. Yet none of them could fully encapsulate the electricity of the moment, the way it brought tears to eyes and smiles to faces. This was not about a hug between a prince and a colleague. It was about the embodiment of Diana's legacy, the reminder that empathy is still revolutionary, and the reassurance that mental health advocacy, though uphill, is not in vain. As Day 4 concluded, Harry left the venue not as a distant royal, but as a brother in the fight for mental health awareness. The young people who had shared their testimonies left not feeling tokenized, but truly heard. Colleen Harris, still glowing from her embrace with Harry, spoke to reporters about hope, resilience, and the need to keep building platforms for young people. The image of their hug continued to ripple outward, making its way into editorials, campaigns, and classrooms. Teachers held it up as an example of kindness, while activists used it as a symbol of solidarity. And so Day 4 will be remembered not just as another entry in Harry's calendar, but as a chapter in the ongoing story of how compassion continues to redefine leadership. The hug with Colleen Harris will stand in the archives as more than a photograph. It will remain a reminder that when pain is met with empathy, healing begins. It will remind the world that Princess Diana's spirit lives on not just in titles or traditions, but in moments like these, where her son embraces the world, one hug at a time. To all my curious Sussex family, thank you all for watching, and do not forget to subscribe, like, and put a comment. Bye-bye, see you then in our next episode.